So it's 1988, and it's my senior year of high school, and I'm up in front of my entire public speaking class. My heart's pounding, my hands are shaking, and I want to start the speech by citing the unreasonably high number of students that have been run over by cars in the Sunny Slope High School crosswalk. And then I'm going to propose abolishing all automobiles and transitioning suburban Phoenix into a hunter-gatherer society. If the plan sounds ambitious, it's probably because I wrote the speech over the weekend right after I'd come down from my first acid trip. And I'd been writing these morbidly obsessed poems about this one girl who had been hit and killed in the crosswalk. She was an unknown, lonely Mennonite girl. So when two popular cheerleaders eulogized her over the school loudspeaker, for me the tribute rang hollow. So I want my speech to fix that. I want my speech to fix everything. And I start, my fellow classmates, we must end the crosswalk slaughter. But before I can go on to my next line, I hear this, hey, and it's this popular girl slouching in the second row, and she says, hey, this sucks. Do your speech on Miss Jones instead. And Miss Jones is this teacher that represents everything I hate about Sunny Slope High School. My family had moved here 5 years ago from my real neighborhood in Central Phoenix. And sure, that neighborhood had been mean in its own way. When I was 7 years old, one day my brother and I were on the curb in front of our house, and we were yelling out, lemonade for sale. And we were trying to flag down this guy on a 10-speed, but he just blew right by us and yelled back, yo mama's for sale. Later, we tried to ask my mom what that meant, but she refused to tell us. And that was the comeback to any insult in those days. But I could never get it right. I always ended up being too boyish, too fat, too unfashionable, and I could never figure it out how to pin it on somebody else's mom. And so just in time for the watershed moment of 7th grade, my parents moved to this wealthier suburban neighborhood, Sunny Slope. And my new rich kid classmates, to me, looked kind of like the kids from that movie E.T. with their little collared shirts. And, you know, my brothers and I and anybody from the old neighborhood, we all thought that movie was unrealistic. Not because it had an alien in it, but because when the one kid calls the other kid dick breath, we were all thinking, why doesn't he just call him a cocksucker? So sure, these rich kids didn't know how to cuss, but they had perfected the art of like devious mind torture. You know, like back in the old neighborhood, we would play this game called Bloody Knuckles that some kid learned in juvie. And basically, if you couldn't pull your hand fast away, somebody would wrap you with a knife or a comb. In the new neighborhood, the rich kids would play this game where they would toss their spare change on the ground and then laugh at any poor kid desperate enough to pick it up. And if you saw some kid getting ganged up on, it was never anything honest like a lunch money shakedown. You know, it was always like some kid getting shoved because he'd worn the same shirt 2 days in a row. Or like the wrong brand of shirt. You know, and I didn't even know what an Izod was, you know. In my old neighborhood, the Hispanic kids set the fashion. So The only rule is that if you were a white kid and you showed up with a baseball shirt with a lowrider decal on the back, you were a wannabe. And so I respectfully chose a rainbow decal for my baseball shirt, and I put my first name above it in blue puffy letters, and not Old English letters. That wouldn't be cool. And I put that shirt on, and I walked into this sea of 800 Izod and polo-wearing kids at Royal Palm Junior High. And I wanted to make new friends that day. I thought I had like this friendly, cheerful shirt on, you know? And yeah, the kids did call out to me, but it sounded like, Molly, Molly. And then every time I'd turn around, they'd laugh at me. So that first year was really rough. I got called Fatty, Molly McBoy, Loser, and Scumbucket. Yeah. In the old neighborhood, I was like the weird white girl. In the new neighborhood, I was the weird white trash girl. You know? And so now I was not only too boyish, too fat, and too unfashionable, I was too poor. But luckily, I had 5 years to try to eliminate all of my flaws. So by senior year, I was down to 115 pounds, and I had a better haircut, nicer clothes. I had the cute boyfriend. I had really arrived. Instead of getting insulted daily, I was now insulted quarterly, like everybody else. But unfortunately, on my first day of senior year, I walked into my business class, and my teacher, Miss Jones, said, who taught you how to walk on your toes like that? What's wrong with you? And these kids started laughing at me. And what especially sucked about this insult was that when I was 7 years old and people first started harassing me for my toe walking, which is walking on the balls of my feet, when I was 7 years old, I held my ground. I thought to myself, fuck these idiots, I'm going to walk however I fucking want to walk, But year after year, society had worn me down, and here was this Miss Jones calling out my one remaining flaw. And she kept doing it, like every single day. She'd imitate my walk in front of the whole class. I tried to get to class early so she could just make fun of me without anybody else there. But she'd wait till the middle of class and interrupt her own lecture to mock me. And I was terrified that this mockery was going to spread and I was going to get, pushed back to 7th grade loser status. I really wanted to transfer out of the class, but the only thing left to transfer into was marching band. So the next thing I know, I was auditioning for marching band. So when the band director, I wasn't sure about the whole thing. I kind of had my doubts. I was like, practice started at 6:30 a.m. The outfits looked really uncomfortable. And then rumor had it that the first chair trumpet player had impregnated 4 of the flute players and had given 2 of them herpes. So when the band director, Mr. Smith, leaned across his desk and, warned me about the early morning practices and told me I'd have to pay for my own uniform, I started asking myself some serious questions. Like, how was it that the trumpet player had impregnated 4 girls, but that it only passed herpes on to 2 of them? It was like one of those math riddles, I thought, well, the trumpet guy must have gotten the first 2 girls pregnant, and then hooked up number 3, gave him herpes, and he passed it along to number 4. I was thinking, hey, if I joined marching band, I could finally get the truth out of that flute section. Mr. Smith stopped talking, and he squinted at me. Wait a minute, he said. Do you even play an instrument? He had me there. musician. I hadn't played drums since junior high, but I pounded away until Mr. Smith said, "Please, just stop." After my failed marching band escape, I toe-walked right back to Miss Jones' class. My strategy this time was to sit next to this quiet girl with perfect hair who was a fringe member of the popular crowd. And that day, Miss Jones' lecture was supposed to be about insurance, but instead it was really about how her favorite musician, Liberace, had his hands insured, and then how her own well-insured house had been burglarized and her pet standard poodle had been doped by the burglars. So I leaned over to the quiet girl next to me and I said, "Jones did it. She staged her own burglary." The girl in her pink Benetton cardigan gave me a stoic look like she had seen it all. "Yeah, no doubt," she said. So I decided to just keep going. I said, "Miss Jones gave Liberace AIDS. And his dog, and her dog. She doped her own dog. She put the needle in his paw." The girl nodded at me as if she were the oldest, wisest woman on the planet. "Oh yeah, I believe it." And then out of nowhere, this oddball from the ROTC piped up. And he said, they had a three-way. Piano dude, Miss Jones, and the poodle. And that's what started this whole kind of murmuring mystery science theater thing that went on day after day, like this serialized story. And pretty soon, a couple of skateboarders joined in and a couple of computer nerds, and pretty soon it was the whole class. By the time that Miss Jones caught on, the storyline was taking place inside her own vagina. It was large enough to house Liberace's grand piano, a whole troop of animal rights activists, and for some reason we threw in Richard Simmons. "No," Miss Jones said, "everybody get out your textbooks." Textbooks? What was she talking about? Nobody had brought a textbook to class in weeks. "No, get out the rules, get out your syllabus." Nobody had the syllabus either. And just like that, we had destroyed Jones's class. She just started giving us busy work and she stopped torturing me. And I had done it. I had finally learned how to say, "Yo mama." But now I'm trying to give my crosswalk speech. And this girl says, "Make your speech about Miss Jones." And I'm thinking, that cardigan girl has probably told her that I'm funny. And I'm thinking, maybe I can ride this Yo Mama thing to the limit, Maybe I can get up in front of the class and make some jokes and suddenly I'll become like one of those confident, smart-ass kids and no one will fuck with me ever again. So I go for the throat. I describe Miss Jones' frizzy orange hair that fails to disguise her blotchy scalp, and her brightly colored goggle-like glasses, and her 250-pound body draped with a smock-like outfit. I say, "She looks like she belongs in a clown choir." But none of them laugh. And I stand there not yet realizing that, fresh little Molly in a rainbow shirt has now turned into a total asshole. And even now I have trouble admitting that I'm an asshole in this story. I really want the moral to be, you know, bald women shouldn't throw stones at toe walkers. Or maybe Miss Jones really did suck. The other option is kids are so mean, which automatically suggests that adults are always kind. And that we never indulge insults and petty cruelty. And goddamn, wouldn't it be great if that were really true right now?